Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of my favorite animated series because it really speaks to your soul. Who you are really affects your actions. If you were born a waterbender, you're more likely to help out your friends, kind of like a healer, versus a firebender and kind of being angry at the world all the time. Have you noticed that? When Aang was traveling around the world trying to find masters to help him in the other three elements, we as the audience started to forget what airbending really meant to him. I mean, the clue is in the title, The Last Airbender. I feel like this part of the plot was really heavy in the beginning, but then it started to trickle out as the show began to end. It's an important concept, but aside from being the last of his kind, Aang also had to figure out who he was as the Avatar as well. And you know who helped him out the most with that? Not Katara, no, not Zuko, don't even guess his past lives. It was actually Momo. Aang and the gang meet Momo at the Southern Air Temple, the place where Aang resided before he fled and froze himself in a ball of ice for 100 years. Momo showed up after Aang shared with Katara and Sokka the life that he lived at the temple. Momo also led Aang to the skeleton of his mentor, Monk Gyatso. This caused Aang to become very upset, which placed him into the Avatar state for the very first time. This makes me wonder, is Momo a representation of the Airbenders, guiding Aang to become his true self as the Avatar? Now, I know you don't remember Momo as the most important member of Team Avatar, but without his antics, Aang wouldn't have become the full-fledged Avatar. When the original trio went to Omashu and met King Bumi, the team got in a pickle and were thrown into a newly refurbished chamber after the king revealed Aang's identity. Katara said that they needed to escape the chamber, otherwise Aang would have to complete these weird challenges. Aang decided to use Momo to go into the vents to get Appa, but Momo ate too much fruit, causing him to not be able to fit through the vents. Now you may think that this was just something that Momo typically did. Eating food all the time is what wing leapers do. But if Aang did escape, he wouldn't have completed the challenges and got to know King Bumi. After all, he was so influential to him that he named one of his sons after him. During the winter solstice, when Aang needed to contact Avatar Roku, Momo tricked the fire sages to opening up the door that leads to Roku's statue. Without Momo, Aang wouldn't have learned about the comet that will increase the Fire Lord's power. In the Siege of the North, Admiral Zhao captured Tu, a fish that was actually the moon spirit. Momo attacks him as he's doing his speech because, you know, all bad guys do really long speeches about how great their plan will go. But that doesn't stop Zhao. He killed the fish, which causes the waterbenders to lose their bending. Although it's sad to say that because of Momo distracting Zhao, Princess Yui had to give up her life to become the moon spirit. Sorry, Sokka, for opening up that wound. This did lead Aang to go into the Avatar state to defeat the Fire Nation fleet. When the huge drill was breaking into the wall of Ba Sing Se, Aang started to square off against Azula on top of it. All of a sudden, Aang slips off, falling to the side. But luckily, Momo was there to save him. After that, Aang was able to stop the drill from going deeper into the wall. The most significant power that Aang learned as the Avatar was energy bending from the lion turtle. Aang knew that he had to kill the Fire Lord, but because he's such a kind soul, he knew at the last minute he wouldn't be able to do it. He wanted another way to stop the Fire Lord for good. When the lion turtle first summoned Aang, he kind of sleptwalked to his island. Momo, who should have tried to stop Aang, just followed him. Aang awakens in a strange land and starts to talk to Momo to get a clear understanding of what's around him. Momo didn't respond because he can't talk, but he did help Aang decide to talk to his past lives to get advice. The odd thing is, Momo didn't stick around for the conversations of wisdom that Aang received from his past Avatar lives, except for when he decided to talk to an airbender. The airbender said although Aang was taught by the monks to basically not take someone's life, it was his duty to do it for the world. Once Aang was done talking to the air nomad, he saw that there was no other choice but to kill the Fire Lord. This upset Momo. Although he could be mirroring Aang's expressions, it seems like he wasn't pleased with the outcome as well. Maybe because he knows from a monk's point of view? Momo also doesn't seem fazed by seeing a giant lion turtle and how it helps out Aang. Perhaps he knew more than we thought. So, Momo was always there when Aang learned something new about him being the Avatar and what he had to do. Is Momo guiding Aang because he is the spirit of the airbenders that he lost? There isn't any strong evidence to support this theory except for one small detail from Avatar Extras. This was an event by Nickelodeon that showed pop-up text bubbles of facts and funny comments from the writers of the show during some of the episodes. In the episode The Southern Air Temple, which is also the episode that first introduced us to Momo, a fact showed that there was an idea of an episode that revealed that Momo was actually the reincarnation of Monk Gyatso. Momo was going to be the monk that was a huge mentor for Aang and traveling with him. He probably would have given some advice to help out here and there. Don't get your hopes up, folks, because this idea was cut. So it's safe to believe that the rest of the series didn't focus on this character development for Momo. As far as why Momo is in the story at all, he's a comedy relief character. He's a cute, funny animal that was always there to lend a hand to the protagonist. Momo is right by Aang's side because he's his loyal pet. He also relates to Aang and even Appa. Just like the Airbender and the flying bison, Momo is alone for the most part. He's the only known descendant of the winged lemurs after the Airbender genocide. But it really makes me think how a small lemur can survive 100 years at the air temples with no people and barely any vegetation. Yeah, so Momo wasn't really that essential, but he did make Team Avatar what it was. For the theory of Momo being the representation of deceased airbenders, I'm going to give it 1 airbender arrow out of 5. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to ChannelFrederator for all of your cartoon needs. If you have a theory that you want us to cover, leave it in the comments. I wish I could airbend my way out of here. Oh wells. See you later.